Hey, Pops, are you ready for today's episode?
I'm ready, and I'm warning you. Fair warning, this episode, if you take it to heart and you do the things that we're talking about, you can be hooked for life. Good hooked, joyously hooked. That's something I've seen several times.
So, what are we talking about then?
We're talking about attracting birds, how it'll work for your garden, for your homestead, for your farm, and all the basics of attracting birds.
Well, I know we've spoken about it in previous podcasts, but I guess just to preface, you've watched or studied birds for, I would say, decades.
Yeah, I mean, as much as people may associate me with the permaculture orchard, I really started in wildlife. It was more general than birds. Birds became kind of a specialty after. But I did a bachelor's in wildlife management of all things. And then went on, did a master's in animal behavior, watching predation in North Carolina of all
Okay,
places.
I was going to say, I didn't know that, but that's the tower thing where
Yeah,
you would go?
yeah.
Okay.
It was predation, so it was watching gulls killing coots and being robbed of their kills by bald eagles. But anyway, so that was really 500 hours up in a tower watching that happen.
And then you've also, I think we've spoken about this too. You had, when I was young anyways, you had a company or a business, or maybe you still do, I don't know, that you would create plans for clients that would attract birds to their yard.
Yeah.
Like that was the whole.
After doing the wildlife thing, I decided I would take it into a way of using that information. So I did a landscape architecture degree, a master's. And so while I was still in school, I started an office to
Yeah, I remember that.
designs to attract wildlife. And it was a great idea, but it was 30 years too
early.
soon.
Yeah. Okay,
And-
so it was wildlife in general.
Yeah, wildlife. I did projects for moose. I did projects for frogs. And a lot of it was birds, but if it works for birds, it'll work for anything. You just have to know the basics of what you're trying to attract.
And like you said, a lot of people that are viewing this might think of him as like the permaculture guy, but ever since I was young, you've always been, to my friends and everything, it's the Birdman.
Yeah.
When I was, I don't know, I hear this story all the time from you when I don't know how old I was, but we had a swing and you would push me on the swing, and just to be able to get pushed, I'd have to recite, I don't know how many bird names. I don't think I could tell you them now, but apparently I don't know how old I was.
No, you were, I don't know, two years old, 3 years old.
So 2 years old, in order to get pushed on the swing, I had to say, I don't know how many bird names.
Well, I was just quizzing you on identifying birds. So I'd show you a flashcard and you had to tell me what the bird was. And
so that just gives context to how much he actually...
Yeah. You knew more birds probably by the time you were 3 than you do today.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I guess then why would people want to attract birds to their yard or to their property?
It's just for the joy of it. Like it's such a pleasant thing. And a lot of times people get into it by putting up a feeder, or they put up a nest box or a bird bath. And they just put it up there just because they saw it and they thought, oh, I'll do that. And all of a sudden, especially with a feeder, all of a sudden they'll get birds coming and it's like, look at that bird. What is that bird? So that's the first thing, is you just start getting some birds. And then you realize, oh, I don't even know what that bird is. But look, it's the red one. Oh, look, it's the blue one. Look, it's those little ones. And I always find feeding birds is a great way to hook people, just like we use hooks in videos, but we try to hook people onto getting attracted to birds. So I'm telling you, you may do this, and it's a good thing to be attracted to, because having birds, I mean, one, it adds the color. There's different color birds. It adds movement. So your yard, when it's windy, there's some movement, but otherwise there isn't that much movement or things to attract your eye. It adds sound. So your plants, yeah, except for a few trees that make sound when it's windy, most of your plants, you don't hear them, but you'll hear the birds interacting. And certainly at some times, like in spring, you really can hear them a lot as they're calling on their territory, whatever. So it's a way, it's like adding a whole group in your garden.
Okay, so it's like another plant pretty much, just that adds extra.
More dimension. Yeah, it adds something, and it kind of gets you. And I find that's why I say you start something like a feeder, and it gets you interested, intrigued. And then, oh gosh, I've seen, I mean, when I used to do designs for wildlife, I would ask people, and how come you want to attract, oh, I set up a feeder a couple of years ago, and it just started from that. And then they got interested. And then to the point where they'd call me in to help them design their yard to attract more birds. But how did it start? And that's why I say I've heard it and seen it in many, many situations where it just starts so innocently. Oh, I'll just put up a feeder, and wow, people realize, not everybody, but there is a percentage of people definitely who they get hooked. I mean, it's like, this is amazing. This is so fascinating, having all these different birds. You put this seed, you get this bird, you put suet, you get these birds. And so it's a start. And then I find, as people, if you start doing some designs or you start putting some plants for the birds and for wildlife, and then you put a pond, and then there's always like that progression.
Different elements, yeah. So you're almost like a collector.
Yeah, some people it's to get, and they keep a checklist. How many birds do I get in my yard? How many, on the farm? So we've got a list going for years. How many species are we getting at the farm? And it's a way of gamifying. So people who have maybe a competitive streak, it's like, look, I want to do more than I did last year. How can I get one more bird this year that I didn't have last year? So I got a few projects even at the farm. Just how can I get chimney swifts? So we built a chimney swift tower. It hasn't worked yet, but that's an idea. We're talking about doing a tower or a setup for bank swallows. Well, that's like, these are very specialized, but if we get them...
I don't even know what that is. So I guess to start off, for people that are just starting out, I know you use some apps. Like, let's say you hit it before. You're like, oh, I got the red one or the blue one. Do you have any reference? Like, I know when you started, there was no internet. So I guess you would, I don't even know. How would you know what that is? Like, what type of bird the red one is?
Yeah, so it was a book like this size. It would be a bird book.
Okay, so you would just go and you
go with a book, and you'd go outside, and you'd have the book, and it worked.
And today, is there an app that you could recommend or something?
Definitely. If people are interested in attracting the birds, just look up the Merlin app, Merlin.
Okay.
It's done by Cornell University. It's excellent, and there's packs you buy. It's free. But you download the pack for the different areas, whether you're in Asia, in Europe, and Eastern U.S., Western U.S. This episode is proudly brought to you by my very own masterclass. Use code POP250 to save $250 off the masterclass bundle. Masterclass contains 11 different courses that you can buy separately. However, the complete masterclass has you covered from A to Z, and it's really my life's work. Masterclass is the ultimate tool to help you start a successful permaculture orchard or planting. Not sure about how to start, or maybe you've already started, but now you feel you're stuck. Purchasing the masterclass gives you access to the VIP group, where you'll be able to meet other like-minded, very interesting permaculturists and bounce ideas off each other. The VIP group is where I spend most of my time answering questions, and it's never been easier to get in contact with me or ask me a question. Want to learn more? Go to permaculture.study and start each course today for free. Don't forget to use code POP250. It'll save you $250 off the masterclass bundle. And now back to the episode. You download the pack, which means it has all the birds that you could see in that area. And in that app, there's something that's really improved and become incredibly useful where, oh, I get these birds and look, they're chirping, or they're calling.
Okay, that's the app you use to...
Right. So you turn on your phone.
Sure.
You just go to Sound ID.
It's like a Shazam.
It's
I don't know
exactly
if people know
that.
what Shazam is, but
It's a way to identify, like you'd identify, what's the song playing?
well, yeah, that's Shazam.
Well, what's the song, or what's the bird making that song?
Question. When you do that and it pops up, does it give you an image of what that bird is?
Um,
Because that would be helpful.
yeah, I think it does now.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, it's incredibly, yeah, it does do that now. It gives you a little picture of the bird, and it's really useful.
What's it called again?
Merlin.
Merlin app. Okay.
Yeah. So it's tools that will help increase the amount. I mean, I've seen a lot of times if you go where it's called hotspots, places where you're likely to see more birds. There are so many people now that are equipped with, the great big lens and the camera.
Yeah.
And I mean, people spend thousands of dollars just to be, it's for them, their thrill in a lot of cases, they're bird watching, but they want to capture that bird. Like, look, I didn't just
hear it.
I took a picture of it, or I took a video clip of it. And I've seen so many times people, look what I just saw today. And they're flipping through on the camera screen.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was watching this bird and that bird. And some of it, it's like, my goodness, there's so many incredibly good clips of birds by people who are just doing it for the fun of it. Like, they're more than when I was watching for 500 hours and I had a thousands of dollar camera and lens, and it's better quality than what I could capture back in.
I hope so.
There are tools out there to help you.
But it seems like it's, well, I don't know if I want to use the word competitive or not, but I know, like, what is it called? National Bird Day or Big Bird Day, that you and Stefano go out and whatever, and they'll come back and they're like, oh, we heard, or whatever, this many birds. I guess it's kind of like the card or coin collecting aspect.
Absolutely. It's like people collecting. I have 85 perennials in my garden, flowering perennials, or I have, like we would have how many, I don't know even how many 100 something different types of fruit growing at the farm. So if you have a collector
mentality,
mentality, then that's something as well. So you can collect birds, you can collect the sounds, you can collect the images. It's just a way to help you enjoy what you're out there to see.
So then I get it. So then by creating a garden or some kind of a habitat, you don't even have to go out then at that point. Technically, you could just have the birds come to you if you have the right plants.
And it's really not that difficult. I mean, when I was doing this, my focus was on getting people the biggest bang for the buck.
Okay.
So if they hired me and, the plan, I don't know, at that time, I think I was charging $2,000 or $3,000 for a full plan of the property. But I was looking at what can I do? What can I put in that will give them the biggest bang for the buck? And so, I mean, it's like anything. When you get into it enough, you kind of have a systematized approach. And for me, it was simple. I just followed the principles of wildlife management, which was, if you want to attract more deer, if you want to attract more cardinals, whatever, you just go through the checklist basically of what any species would need. So it's food. Can you give them some food? Well, I could put a feeder for cardinals. Or can you give them water? So food, cover, water. Those are the top three. So we can go through them one at a time.
I remember that from editing, yeah.
Yeah, food it's so basic. You think, well, they've got to eat. If in your garden you can provide fruit, seeds, nuts, insects that will attract that species, then you're likely to get them.
That's actually a good idea, or a good, just the fact that you said insects. So before that, I wouldn't have even thought about that. So what, you would grow plant or a flower that would attract the insect, that in turn would attract a specific bird.
Right, right. And there's a huge, huge difference depending on what species of plant you give you an example. The best is trees. So you put a tree, let's say a Scots pine, which can attract a few insects, and there are insects that use that, but it's not native to our country.
Okay.
And we have the whole hedgerow at the farm is all Scots pine.
Okay.
So it gets the pine sawfly. So that for a time, that's of interest. It does have some other insects wintering on it just as structure. So some insects are just looking for a nook or a cranny. They don't care on species. They're looking for a place. And so you'll get some that are there and the birds will look for those insects. But you get other species like oaks, and oaks are the champions. If you have an oak tree, in terms of insects, it's always above 100 species of insects that will be attracted because it's an oak tree. So some for the leaves, some in the bark, some in the nuts. So there's a whole range, a lot more species. So there is lists out there that will give you, for the tree species, how many insects it attracts. People have done the research on it, and they've gone through and they've monitored and counted and done sweep nets and so on to count how many insects are attracted by that plant. Give you another example. Forsythia, which is an often used landscape plant for the garden. That plant, I mean, that's why in permaculture, one principle is every element. So a plant that you put is an element. Every element you add should have at least 3 functions. It should do 3 jobs. It should give you 3 benefits. Okay, what are the benefits of Forsythia? It flowers for about 7 to 10 days in the spring if it didn't freeze.
Okay.
So this year...
Do we have any of those?
We have them we don't have them, but we have them in the neighborhood, let's say. If it's below minus 28, the flower buds freeze. So come springtime, it won't even flower. So right there you go, well, you're planting it for the flower, but some years it doesn't flower because it froze. Okay, what else does it do? Does it attract insects?
Does it repel insects?
Minimally for that 1 week. It'll attract a few insects, but otherwise nothing. Does it attract birds as cover? They'll perch in it once in a while, but they don't really nest in it. It's not a shrub that they like to use to nest in. Oh, okay. So you go through and it's like, well, what is it doing? You take something like Saskatoonberry, Amelanchier alnifolia. Hey, you've got it, you plant it. After a few years, it flowers. So, okay, it flowers. The Forsythia flowered, that's why you planted it. Well, the Amelanchier flowered as well. But the flowers become fruit. So the Forsythia doesn't. It doesn't really even produce seeds reliably, so it's not of use there. So the Amelanchier will produce flowers and then fruit. Wow. And the fruit changed color, which is kind of neat because it goes from a green fruit to then whitish and then red and blue and then black.
Jeez, okay.
So it's like, oh, wow, it changes. Okay.
I can already see people are like, well, this sounds daunting. So again, like I kind of got to scale him back sometimes, but imagine he was doing this, 30 years ago now? So at least nowadays, I mean, what he's saying is good, but to practice it, it should technically be that much easier for people now. Instead of having to go to a library and figuring it out, you could find the bird. Like if you reverse engineer it, I'm saying,
right? You
find the bird, you Google it, or I don't know, use ChatGPT or whatever you want to use,
Absolutely.
and then it'll, I'm assuming, list off like what habitat, and you can kind of go from there and build. No,
right. So what habitat it would use?
Yeah,
good example. And here's one curious little tidbit that I picked up along the way. If somebody called me and they had cardinals, I knew right off that highly likely they are in the richest neighborhood or the most expensive neighborhood in that part of their city. You say, how can you say that? I've seen it enough times, and if, as Zachary was saying, we reverse engineer. Cardinal. What does cardinal indicate? He's an indicator of the same habitat features that we humans are often looking for when we want to buy a property. Why? Because it has trees. Okay, trees. But it has to be mature trees. And there has to be a mix of deciduous and coniferous. So there has to be trees that are pines or cedars or whatever. And there has to be mature maples or birch or whatever. So right there, oh, that's interesting. But that's not enough. Now you have to have shrubs, and the shrubs have to be mature, and shrubs that produce fruit. You think, well, yeah, there's shrubs that produce fruit. And it has to have open area, places where the ground is open, well, not bare, but open, and right down to ideally not grass, but it could be perennials. And so and it has to have water.
So they're really bougie.
They're the ones. And so that's why I say it's like, you have cardinal. Okay, well, I know that's the more expensive neighborhood. You say, I just bought a place. A lot of times people say, I bought a place in a new development and I want to get cardinal. So I say, well, we'll plan it out. We'll design it. But I can tell you, it might be 10 years before cardinal actually get interested. And it could be another 5 years after that where they would nest.
Okay, so you could have like your, I guess, 5, 10 dream species. And
sure.
If they, I guess, inhabit somewhat of the region, you could do things to eventually down the line attract them.
Sure.
Like it's not just like a complete write-off. Like
No, and just as an example, when we bought this place,
yeah,
and we moved in, I had seen a few cardinals in the neighborhood, but never did they come in our yard.
Okay, and now, yeah,
now they're here all the time. They're
Yeah.
probably nesting either here or at one of the neighbors. So you can. So that was, for me, that was a target species. I wanted to get cardinal to
Okay.
come regularly. Now they're at the feeder every day.
Yeah.
And they use the hedge every day. But I knew which element, and that's where I was saying the biggest bang for the buck. So going through that list, is
Yeah, I
it
was gonna
food?
ask you what
Is
that
it
is.
cover? Is it water? And then there's even a fourth, which is really specific requirements that some species need. I just would go through that list. And when I would look, so for example, food. Okay, you want to put food in the yard. But I know that a bird rarely will have enough of your yard. It will be a part of their home range, their territory. So your yard is just one of the yards. So I would never just look at a person's yard. I would never look at just their property. I would look around. What do the neighbors have? How far before there is a little patch of forest? How far?
So if the neighbors have something, you wouldn't suggest doing the same thing because you're just
Exactly.
wasting.
Right. If they
area.
had the shrubs, let's say a certain shrub that really, well, we're saying amelanchier. If they had
That's smart.
3 amelanchier shrubs,
You're good for the shrub thing.
You're good for that shrub one. They'll be at the neighbors at that time using their shrubs. So you could put something else.
That's a good
It's
point.
really that biggest bang for the buck. So you include the surroundings, knowing that they're on your property, but their home range, it's like a donut.
That's really smart, actually.
You have the outside of the donut
Sure.
and you have the inside. And their home range varies from summer to winter. So their winter habitat or territory is much bigger than where they'll spend most of their time during the nesting season. Nesting season is the inside, is the hole in the donut. So it's a much smaller area they're going to use in the summer or springtime than in the winter when food is scarce and now they have to go much further. So it's that kind of
Because if they go further or migrate or whatever, that they wouldn't necessarily come back because they're going to be like, well, I'm going to have to do this every year.
A lot of them come back, and a lot of them, at least one of the sexes, will come back to the exact same area. So I give you one example. Hummingbirds. I mean, they travel from here to Central America, the ones we have, which is the ruby-throated hummingbird. And so we'd get them at the farm. They were coming for the feeder, and they were coming for the flowers, but they'd come to the feeder.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the feeder set up just off the gallery. And so we're sitting there, and the hummingbird comes, and then one day in September, it's gone. So it goes down to Central America. It's gone till the next year in May. Well, we don't leave the feeder out all winter, so we take the feeder down. Next spring comes around in May, and here comes a hummingbird, and it hovers exactly where that feeder was.
Yeah.
There's no feeder. Let's say we didn't set it up, and he happens to be a week early. There's no feeder, but the bird is hovering right there.
Which is actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's wild. And I've seen this, and you're like, oh, it's because it's waiting for the feeder.
Yeah. But like, if it's just any hummingbird, how would he know? He
True.
can't. So it's either the adults from last year or even the young, which also discovered the feeder. So you'll get species come back. Think of it. I mean, this is getting down to, the granular part and really detailed, but it makes sense because it takes a while to learn. Just take your example. It takes a while to learn your neighborhood. Oh, where's this place? And where can I get this? And where can I get that? You don't learn it the first 2 days you move into a place. So it's the same for a bird. When they discover and they take a territory, it takes them a while to find, and in wildlife biology, we call it patches, because there's never food everywhere. There's a patch. There's one shrub here, and there's another patch over there, and a patch down there. So they have to discover these patches. And I remember when I was studying ducks in Manitoba, one of the projects that I worked on, Mike Anderson, he had been studying canvasback duck, which is a diving duck that summer or spends springtime nesting on these small farm ponds in the prairies. And he had tagged every duck. They had nest trapped them, and so they'd have tags. They could identify the individuals. Okay. So he would know, let's say, this is female number 62 here, female 62, and she has young, and they had nest trapped the young. So they also saddle trap, banded them. And so he was watching. So what happened was, so he followed them for 10 years. He had a female that was 20 years old that was coming back for 10 years. And he would see that the female would teach its daughters where the best patches were, because they knew that just the daughters, because the males will follow a female. They don't decide where they're going to go for the summer or the spring to nest. It's the females who return to their home range. So the females would teach their daughters where the best patches were in a pond to find the tubers, because they would dive to the bottom of the pond, and in a pond, it's not there's food everywhere. No, there's patches of food. So she would teach the daughters, because the next year when the daughter came back, she would take either that pond or a neighboring pond and nest on it. And it was amazing to see that, the birds will spend time teaching their kids how to survive better. So that's why there's every interest for a bird to return. So if they're migratory and you have them and you attracted them, chances are that they will come back. And even if it's not the adults from last year, it's the young, or at least the female young in many cases,
who have been taught
and will come back to take up that territory. So food is really, it's the cornerstone. I mean, if you don't have anything for them to eat, you could still get them. But food is really something I divide it always into the short term. You can do things quick. You can do things for the long term. So often we'd start, and let's do the quick things. So quick things were simple. Do you have a feeder? Put up a feeder. Put feeder with sunflower seeds and put a feeder with some suet. That works. Oh, it could be a feeder for hummingbirds. So that's a quick thing. You set it up today.
Yeah.
In some cases, you'll get results in a few days. It could be that day, depending, but it's a quick reaction.
It could be that quick.
It could be like if there's birds around, it could be minutes. Like
okay.
sometimes, oh, look at that, because they see movement. I would even have people put a ribbon, like a ribbon. Yeah, just put a ribbon off your feeder, because birds are always attracted to what's moving. They're looking for something because a predator is moving.
Okay, because I always remember, like, I guess in TV or whatever, like they would put out a scarecrow, and I always assumed that it's because it moved and they thought it was a person that they would avoid. So you're saying the opposite.
That is true if it looks like a person, but all you want to do when you put something new is just to make them look. So if they look, and maybe from a distance, there's something in that thing that they put up. Because first, a bird knows everything in its territory.
Okay.
So to get them to notice that
something
this
new.
is something new, you put something move. I remember one lady, I did a talk for a group, and I was explaining and how to do these things. It was a talk on gardening for birds. And one lady said, "That's very nice," she says, "but I live on the 10th floor of an apartment and I have a gallery, but it's on the 10th floor." Okay, so I said, you know what? That's a nice example. So I said, here's what you could do. Put up a feeder or a couple of feeders, but put ribbons hanging from your gallery just to get the birds to look up. And she said, yeah, then I started to get some birds.
But they're just because they're curious? Like at that?
Yeah, they're curious. You've got to attract them. You've got to get their attention.
Like a pattern interrupt.
Like an ad.
Yeah, okay.
You want them, pattern interrupt. It's a way to make them look. Well, I went back the next year on another topic, and the lady I could see, like, she was so excited to say something. She said, "You were here last year and you spoke about birds. I just wanted to tell you, you told me this and this and this to do." And she said, "This week, I was on the phone, I turned around, I look," and she said, "Here's a peregrine falcon perched on the railing of my gallery." I said, well, I can't top that. I mean, I've never had it. But why was the peregrine attracted? Because there were birds that were using her obviously. She said, she said, "I didn't have a bird for the whole week." And that's normal, because when a predator comes, the bird's like, okay, that's, let's
lay low.
Let's leave that on pause for a few days. And so that was just an example of, one, you get the attraction, and two, once they start using, and then even the predator, like a peregrine falcon, that was a real icing on the cake. But using those principles, it's pretty easy, but you've got to get the ball rolling.
Like I said, I would have never thought that, just adding movement, like I was saying, I feel like I was lied to my whole life. I thought it was always the opposite. Adding movement would scare them away. So just that, and that's such an easy little tidbit, just to add a ribbon. Everybody has that.
Yeah. Not leave it forever, but just when you first put it up, you just want to get eyeballs on it. But no, what you say, like, I think back, my thesis was increasing or decreasing wildlife in urban and suburban areas, because you could also decrease. What you're saying with the scarecrow, that's a way to decrease. If you put an owl decoy on the corner of your house and you move it ideally every day, you'll decrease the amount of you'll increase crows, because crows will go nuts, but you will decrease the number of birds. Every principle works in both directions. You say, "Oh, I get so many birds, they always sit in that tree." And I've had people say, I can't stand having all these. It was often crows. So they'd have crows in a certain tree every morning at 5 o'clock. And I said, no, that's simple solution. I said, just cut the tree down. And they're like, well, no, I don't want to cut that big spruce tree. I don't want to cut it. Well, I said, that's what's attracting them at 5 o'clock. They sleep in there. And first thing in the morning, they're calling. So the principles work in both directions. We don't often want to do the other direction that would get rid of them. But in some cases, I think I was telling you once the example of if you have a lot of gulls in a park and they'll sleep in your park because it's a wide open space.
So they can see predators coming.
Right.
Yeah.
They can see. So that's a great place to sleep. So they want a roost or a nighttime place where they can, or even daytime, they'll sleep. But they have to have wide open view. I said, the easiest thing to not get them to use it, or geese in parks. Very easy to get rid of geese in parks. You just plant, could be a hedge or a series of shrubs leading to the middle of that grassy area. Mm. Why? Because all of a sudden
it
now,
predators that would come.
If a fox is hunting geese, he'll just follow that line of shrubs because he knows he can get really close and he could surprise them and take their goslings. All of a sudden, they're not going to use that park.
See, but we've touched on this too. You just said, well, it's easy, but like for regular people, I wouldn't know that. But I mean,
well, it's just with practice. So I've done it for so long. It's just second nature, and I go through my checklist.
Okay.
Food, is there food here? Are we looking to attract them, or are we looking to?
Well, I know right away too. People are going to be like, where can I find this checklist?
Food, cover, and water. Start with those three.
I was going to make a shameless plug and talk about your Allies course because I edited it, so I know that everything's in there too.
Yeah. The Allies course it's this and way. It's detailing. I mean, giving you plants, going through the whole series. It's following that system, but really trying to get you into the mindset for whatever your area and to think, oh yeah, I can. I'm just trying to impart. So this is a taste, but in the Allies course, here it is. This is
like, again, to preface, you can find all this online for free.
Right.
It's just there. You package it, so it's like you kind of take the.
I put it all for you, lay it all out. Here it is. It's not that difficult, but you have to have been exposed to it. You have to think of it. I mean, I was in this for 10 years. In school, and then another 10 years doing my design office. But it just comes from practice. So starting with food, that's a good one. And
so is that the best bang for your buck? Like you keep...
It depends.
Okay.
So the first thing is, I always would say, what's missing? So I'd look at a property and I'd going through, is it food? Is it cover? Or is it water? What's missing here for you to get hummingbirds, for you to get cardinals, for you to get roadrunners in the desert? What's missing here? What do they need? If your neighbor has a pond and a bird bath.
That's, again, to bring up the point, I wouldn't even thought about like adding in what my neighbor or the other neighbor would have. So just by doing that,
right.
That's
what I always look at. Their property, the surrounding property. When I do parks, for example, for cities, I look, okay, here's the park. But you know what? Right next to the park, there's a whole bunch of people who have property along the park. I just walk the edge and see, what do they have? Okay, and making a mental checklist. What's at a neighbor's is not under your control. It doesn't mean it will always be there. But if I see, oh, look, two people have a little pond. So for me to put in a little pond in that park, it's not the biggest bang for the buck.
I understand.
Like it's good, but how about we use a bigger pond? Because we already have the little ponds. Let's put a bigger pond. Let's have a pond that's a half an acre. Oh, well, now we'll get ducks coming in. So it was going through that list. Is it food that's missing? Is it cover? And what's cover? We didn't even finish with food, but food is fruit. That's why it's great. And if you're going to put in a permaculture orchard, you already have a real a potential to get a lot because you are adding fruit. And if you have fruit as tree fruit, you can have shrubs. And don't just put any shrubs, put fruiting shrubs. So now the birds that are looking for fruit, whether berries, small fruit, or tree fruit, and you say, well, I don't want to share my fruit. Okay, and in some cases you don't. But I always find, and it's looking at it as people say, oh, I put a tree in and the birds came in and they got everything.
Yeah, they ate it all.
So the problem isn't, now I got to get rid, or you can exclude the birds. You can just put a net. But it's often a symptom. It's not the problem. They're indicators that there's just not enough of it. Yeah. So plant more. And that's why I love, for example, the plum trees we have at the farm with the Mount Royal plums on their own root, because they will sucker a little bit, or they will send out shoots around the tree, maybe 2 or 3 a year. Well, here, you plant it, dig it up, plant another one in the yard somewhere, or just give it to your neighbor. They say, oh, those were such good plums. Here, would you like one of these trees?
Yeah.
Or trade it. And so now what you're doing, and I always find it's a little sneaky, but it really works. Remember I was saying the donut, you have the inside of the donut and the outside of the donut. Well, if you're the one, you planted this plum tree and you want to get the plums. You're in the core. Imagine you're in the core. You're the only one with that plum tree. Of course, when the squirrels come, they'll come. Or some of the birds will come and peck the fruit. Yes. But now if you give that same plum, means it'll be ripe at the same time.
So they're going to go to your neighbors.
Other people. Now the birds and the animals will often go on the outside because unless it's the ones that live on your property, they'll take the first tree they see. It's like, oh, look at that. And they'll come in to the neighbor's trees.
So you're like Trojan horse that.
You're going to be less, because by the time they get to your tree, they've already filled up. They'll remember, oh yeah, and you know what? The trees are ripe, so you'll pick them, and it's sneaky in a good way. And then they can do the same. Those neighbors can
pass it on.
Pass it on. And eventually, you know what happens? The birds will eat, like I say, I'm good with, in our orchard, having 10% of the crop eaten by birds or animals or whatever animals are eating the fruit. I'm okay with that. Why? Because I know that they're also doing some of the other services. So in the case of birds, at some other times of the year, usually springtime, they're probably really scouring your trees to find insects. And so they're doing a service for you. And for me, that 10% loss is just their salary. It's like, look, you've done a great job. You can have some of my fruit. It's fine. And I mean,
performance bonus.
I'm not afraid to grab a fruit. Oh, look, it's been pecked. I'll just eat the other side. It's not like, oh, it's been pecked. It's no more good. It's contaminated. What? A bird put one peck in it.
Yeah.
I mean, people let dogs lick their face. I can't stand the idea. But, you know, a bird, what's he got? A dry beak? What are you going to get from a bird, you know? So anyway, that's the whole idea of getting some food elements. So fruit, seeds, another one. Some trees produce a lot of seeds, and there are seed-eating birds that will then eat that. Could be a shrub, could be perennials are often really good. Perennials being flowers that you leave into the late summer, late fall, and birds then come and eat the seeds out of those flowers. And I always tell people, look, if you want more birds, you can't be looking to neaten up your property so much, because neatness in the sense of, oh, well, the flowers finished, I'm going to cut them down, or cut, you know, I don't want these dried stems looking, or, well, you're just taking away food from those birds that would normally say, you know, I think I'm going to spend the winter here. There's so much seed here.
That's the other thing too. I remember by editing that course, is you explain that, like, yeah, they have different hierarchies of food. So as the season progresses, food becomes more and more scarce. So a lot of people might think, well, okay, I'm good, I have this. But then what happens in the off season, if you have nothing, they're going to leave, right?
Right.
Whereas if you plant certain things that, like he says, you're going to pretty much guarantee that they have at least something to eat, they'll stick around.
Yeah, and it depends on the climate, obviously. Like we have,
True.
there's not many flowers here that would keep their seeds above the snow because we can get snow deep enough that it'll bury those seeds. And it's not wasted, but it'll be used by things like voles or mice because they'll come tunnel through the snow and find those seeds and eat them.
But even apples, we go to the orchard during the
Absolutely.
winter time, and you see in the tree still, not a whole lot, but there's still apples that are hanging there and they're dried out.
And not every cultivar. So there's a couple that are late apples that hold well, and I will leave a few trees with those apples, especially if it's smaller fruit. Smaller fruits hangs better because it's not as heavy. So even if it's windy,
doesn't fall off.
it won't fall off as easily. And birds tend to like smaller fruit. Like birds often want to get, like in berries, if you have a big berry or a small berry, they much prefer eating the smaller one because it'll be one shot and they swallow it.
Okay.
As opposed to pecking at the other. But they will peck certain things. If you're growing strawberries, you'll see strawberries peck because the bird can't eat it all and they just go for whatever's red. Yeah, so that's food. So you get the fruit, the seeds, could be nuts.
And another thing I remember too, I'm just maybe
Going
they don't
through
even need
what
to
you
maybe they
saw.
don't even need to buy the course because we're giving them so much. But I remember one of the examples you used was grapes. So you plant grapes and then people are going to complain, yeah, well, the birds came and they ate all my grapes. So what would you do, or what would you plant so that they don't eat your grapes?
Yeah, plant red. So there's a hierarchy of what birds identify.
Which
and
again,
eat.
I didn't know any of this, but
Yeah, they'll go first because the natural or the wild grapes are usually blue or black. So the first reaction of birds is to go for blue or black grapes. Whether you're growing it, like not even wild, just you're growing grapes. I would say don't plant blue or black grapes if you can. Why? Because the birds will go for those when they are ripe because they identify them as food that's similar to the wild grapes. Well, if you plant red grapes, is less attractive because it's like it's only red, so it can't be ripe. But the best one is planting green grapes or white grapes, depending on. Those are the ones that the birds think, well, that's not ready. It's not ready. It's not ready. And it's ripe and it's sweet and you harvest it and it's like, wait a minute. And they don't make the connection. I mean, that's where a bird, and I saw this when I was studying the birds in North Carolina. It's a bird is learned a certain food. So, for example, there were certain gulls that was the next phase, and I had a proposal for a PhD study where I would trap the gulls so I could identify the individuals because I knew that certain gulls had learned how to kill the coots. I didn't have proof, but they would do the same way they would catch them, and so they had learned how to get that food. So if a bird learns how to get a green grape, it's like, wow, I got so much food in this yard. He's got an advantage over the other birds. And then, as I was saying with the canvasback ducks, then they will teach their young that green grapes are good.
So you have a limited window, and then the
you
generations
have a window,
are...
and if you harvest them or if you net them, like you just get rid of the pressure. Birds and animals learn.
So it's
they
like a
learn
Band-Aid.
what's food. I'll give you an example. We're now seeing at the farm, in the first years when we had Japanese beetle, remember when we did the Japanese beetle video as an indicator? Well, Japanese beetle, when they first come into an area, it's like, what is this? It's not something I've ever eaten. So a bird goes, oh, no, I don't eat this. I don't recognize this. I was never fed this.
So they have a couple of seasons of immunity, basically.
They have, I've asked people, and you have about 5 years. Where the Japanese beetle are just more and more and more and more.
Because nothing's eating them.
Nothing's discovered them as a food source. But then once a few birds try them and go, these are actually, I can eat these. And
It's like the sheep effect.
that's the next step is, and if, especially if it's at a time where they have young, if they feed their young that food, then the young learn, oh, that's food. And then
when they grow up, they go and
they will right away, when they see them, they go, oh, I know that. That's this. Like, think of your food habits. It's really similar. Like, if you grew up, we didn't grow up with Indian food, or we didn't grow up with Thai food. So, I don't know. Do I want to eat this?
Yeah,
I've
do I
never
like
eaten
that?
this. Do I like it? I don't know how this tastes. So you have to be willing to explore, is this food source? Is this something that's good? So the same for animals. Not, it's risky. Is this dangerous? Ooh, I don't know. And so there is a cost to trying new foods, and the ones who take advantage of it and find that it is good food have an advantage. It's because all of a sudden you got so much of this food is around. So every new food item that's introduced, that's why invasives, we call them invasives. It's a new plant that the local animals, the local wildlife, has not learned how to use. I don't recognize this. Animals, for example, cows. If there's a weed that comes into a pasture, all of a sudden, that pasture can be really taken over by a certain weed. Why? Because the animals, they don't recognize it, because mama never introduced me to it. And in fact, they found that in the case of cows or animals that feed their young, that taste is in the milk. So when the young is being fed, the milk can pick up a taste. So when they nibble that weed, they go, oh, yeah, I eat that. I remember that. And there's a learning process for all animals of what is good food and what's not.
I mean, I guess it's the same for us. It's just the situation or circumstances are different now. We don't need to go out and try all kinds of food just because of where society currently is. But I can imagine, like, back in the day, you're walking through a forest, like the people that came here to North America for the first time. You see mushrooms, right?
Absolutely.
And you go to your buddy because I don't want to try that. Hey, man, go try that mushroom. And he does. And he either like trips, like has a whatever. Or dies.
Yeah.
Or oh, this is okay, you know?
Well, that's why, I've kind of back up 10,000 years or 20,000 years, whatever in the area, when the first people came in, and there was all this food, but is it food or is it medicine? And that's why a lot of times in a clan, or there was a group, or there would be one person who was basically like the
fall
shaman.
Guy?
No, they were the shaman. They were the people who communicated with the spirits, because they had a way of, and it's like, there's no other way, because you're risking your life. So
especially back then,
you're 6 of you in the group. Who's going to try it? Is it worth trying, So anyway, they had a way of identifying something through the spirit, and then they would, yes, but it's only a medicine. And yes, it's a medicine for this. And so they would get, because how else did people learn?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I know we're getting off topic, but even like honey, you see this thing in the forest and there's insects buzzing around it and you're getting stung. Who's the first guy that's like, okay, you know what? It's worth like this many bee stings. Like, I gotta try that. You know what I mean? So I guess, I understand the bird thing then. Like,
there is a learning phase for anything. And that's why really invasives are a good example, how they can, because they have a period where nobody's eating them. Nobody's eating the seeds. Nobody is eating the leaves, So they have a chance to spread. And you think of it in an overall ecosystem approach, that's good. Otherwise, no new species would ever get established. How would it's something new, I'm going to eat it. Then, you have one plant comes in. And if it can't get established and multiply, it's done. So you never would get a spread of plants. So that's how it's kind of like there's the 2 phases, a plant or an animal or an insect. And it's got a window, you better multiply.
It's evolution.
And otherwise you'll disappear. So it's just, I guess I just can geek out on things where
Well, another thing, I know I'm cutting you off when we're going around, but that I remember was, again, to bring back the grape thing. If, let's say, you like green grapes and then they start to also enjoy green grapes, you could then plant purple or whatever
absolutely
a little bit further away
Yeah.
or closer to, like, I guess that donut thing you were saying, so that by the time they get to your green grapes, they've filled up already on the other ones that you don't like as much.
Yeah. In farming or in ecosystem system, it's called a lure crop. It's like a lure the
Away
species
from-
away from.
Yeah.
So you give it something that they prefer, and you don't have to plant a lot. A good example, we had that in the first years when we had put in cherries. So we put cherries, but we also had these honeysuckle. And the honeysuckle would fruit at the same time as the cherry. But the honeysuckle is a much smaller fruit, and we only had a couple of bushes. But I remember, because the first year we had cherry, the honeysuckle wasn't mature, so it didn't produce. And boy, the birds discovered the cherry, and they ate it all.
Yeah,
they ate
Steph,
everything.
Steph has all kinds of B-roll for the
Yeah,
master classes.
It's just like, wow, cherries, absolutely. But having those honeysuckle, all of a sudden, at that same time, the birds that would normally eat cherry also eat honeysuckle. And they're like, the honeysuckle one is a thick shrub. So in terms of the cover, it gives them better hiding cover because they can be eating. They're in a thick shrub. If a predator comes around, you have to think like a bird. Their main priority is in the whole year, survive till tomorrow. So for that, they've got to always be on the lookout for a predator.
Mm-hmm.
And if a predator does show up, am I in a safe place or am I out in the open where I'm, there's spots where birds accumulate. If you go bird watching, a best way to see that is in migration, birds will pile up along big waterways. So for example, the St. Lawrence. They'll pile up in the fall, they'll pile up on the north shore of the St. Lawrence, and sometimes the birds will be thick. Why? Why don't they just keep going and cross the St. Lawrence? Because it's such a big body of water, and the peregrine falcons know that, and they sit on the tall trees on the edge or on a bridge, and they're just watching, like, is there going to be a young, dumb one that's going to try crossing the river where, I am the fastest bird in the sky. I will take it. And the bird has nowhere to hide. Like birds sometimes will actually hit the water trying to get away. It's like, yeah, pretty dangerous. You're going to, and so
it's just a numbers game being a bird.
It's a number. You just want, so that's why there's safety in numbers.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So you want to be with a flock. You don't want to be alone. You don't want to be first.
So you don't want to be first. You don't want to be last.
You want to be in the group. And it's kind of, you think of humans, there's a clique or a group. There's a reason, because there's safety in numbers. I'm not there. I'm always the outlier. So I get slammed. Like if I do a video on Tesla, I'm going to get slammed. The comments are an interesting viewpoint to see. But it's okay. I'm used to it. I'm used to being in the outlier. Well, it's also
different circumstances now compared to back then. Back then, you want to be the shaman. You don't want to be the guy that the shaman's telling you to go eat that mushroom when you die.
Well, I guess, I don't know if he would have the information. Is he the one trying? I guess it's like, don't risk the shaman.
No.
Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, cover is another one. So you got food. Cover is really important. And it's that hierarchy of what am I missing? Most suburban areas, most urban areas, it's cover. It's a good hiding place is rare.
Okay, so that's what they're missing.
That's what they're missing. So I would go to a place and I'd look and it's like, if you look and you see every plant in the yard, there's probably not a whole lot of cover.
And it's like a cookie cutter neighborhood. So all the houses,
you have grass. Yeah. Maybe you have a fence, or maybe you have a few shrubs on the outside, but there really isn't.
Each house has one tree.
Yeah, there isn't a good. For me, my definition of cover was pretty simple. It was if you put your arm in the plant, in the tree or in the shrub, do you see your hand?
Mm-hmm.
If you see your hand, that's not good cover because you're seeing, 2.5, 3 feet in, depending on how big you are, and you see that. Well, that's not thick. What is really lacking for cover is thick. And I used to call it, you have to have some elements of a jungle. It has to be thick enough that a bird goes in and you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it for sleeping, that's important. For nesting, that's really important. A bird has to nest where it feels secure. It feels that it's not seen. The predators won't find the nest, won't find the eggs and so on. So it has to have a thick cover.
I mean, good example. Like I've heard of it. Like how many people see birds sleeping? Like they obviously sleep, right? But like,
right.
I don't know, like most of the time people don't see it.
Yeah. You see the signs of it.
Sure.
Like I know we have a cedar hedge and that cedar hedge, it's pretty thick. Well, you look on the ground or on the snow and you see all the droppings.
Yeah.
Why? Because the birds, yes, in the daytime, in the winter, they're using the sunny edge, but at night they're in there sleeping. And so it's a way of concentrating fertility as well. So you think, well, for my garden, for your garden, if you have a feeder, you're going to attract more birds. They're going to use the surrounding plants to perch on. And you'll see they'll have their preferred plants to perch on. Well, those plants, they are getting a very healthy dose of fertility. So it's a way of letting the birds help you garden better. They're patrolling, getting food in the sense of insects. They're fertilizing the plants that they like to perch in. They are possibly nesting in some of the plants that you have. So cover but it could be thick and it could be completely open. As I was giving the example of, for example, geese to feed, they want to feed in the most open. Gulls to sleep or to roost in the daytime, they'll use the most open area. So it just depends on the bird.
So that's where I guess you make, if you're somebody that's gardening for birds, you would make a checklist and then you would research and then figure out, okay, on the top of my list, I want to attract this bird.
Right. So just go through thinking this bird, we're talking about cardinal. Do you have that? You're in a new neighborhood and you go, well, no, there's nothing here.
But I really want.
Well, you won't get it for a while. You might get one passing if you have a feeder with the food they like.
Mm-hmm.
So put in some sunflower seeds. At least you'll know, is there one in the area? Not in my yard, but in the area. Because if there's one in the big part of the donut in the winter, then they'll probably come to your feeder at some point. And that's what we had. We put out feeder. And hey, we had one come, for 1 week in the winter. It's like, oh, okay. So they're somewhere in the neighborhood, not in our yard.
Mm-hmm. But they know now. So now when they have young, they can
well, if the
on.
habitat is right. So if the elements are there. So in their case, they have to have thick cover and they have to have the fruiting shrubs and so on. Like we have a Saskatoon berry in the yard. Well, I know 6 o'clock in the morning.
And we're the only ones that have that.
We're the only ones who have it. And absolutely, the cardinal, you hear him chirping. He wakes me up at 6 o'clock in the morning because he's in there gorging on the berries.
Which right there, that actually brings up a good point. Like I said, I didn't think about using the neighbors' yards and whatever. But if you find something that like species you want to attract really likes, and you're the only one that has that in the donut, chances are you're just increasing your...
Right. Each plant has a window. So unless it's the plant that they use for cover, and their window is they're using it when they're sleeping or they're using it to nest. They're not using it all the time, but that's a great one. If you get them to nest or to roost or to sleep in there, then you've got them coming every day anyway. But then the element of putting a plant to give them food, okay, so for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on the plant, you'll have them coming for that plant. So then you go, okay, they liked that one. And I always used to say to people, just take a walk in your neighborhood and notice what people have and what they are getting. So it could be, Oh, I'd like more flowers in my yard. No problem. My goal was always to help people, to make them see that your goal, if you want flowers, is to get flowers from the very first flowering in the spring till the very last flowering in the fall, and have something flowering every week in between. That's a pretty big target, but it's absolutely doable. And so I would have my clients say, okay, here's what you have now. We're going to put in these plants, and we may end up with a few holes. So I'd say, I want you to keep for a couple of years, keep a calendar where all you do, and I did it at the farm for a few years, just note what's flowering this week that you have in the yard. And then you'll find, oh, look at that. The second week of July, I have nothing. Perfect. Take a walk. So you take a walk in your neighborhood, you find a similar situation. So for example, if it's your front yard and your front yard is in the sun, don't look at the side that's in the shade. Look at the sunny side of other properties and go, hey, look at this, the second week of July. Look at this in flower. And then I would tell people, do the typical gardener thing. Knock on their door, or if they're outside, ask them and say, hey, I was admiring your garden. You have an amazing flower that's blooming right now. What's the name of that plant? Oh, it's this and this and this.
Well, normally too, if people, that's their thing, they're excited and they just want to share. I'm sure people even offer you seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and they want to share. So sometimes people are, oh, I got lots of them. Would you like I got some seeds, or would you even like some plants? I'm not going to dig them up now because they're in flower, but sure.
Come back.
And so you start to build just from what people have in their neighborhood, because plants multiply. If a plant is in the right condition, my criteria was always, if the plant doesn't double, then it's not in the right place. It should double in a year. Like it's really doing well. It's doubling. It's getting bigger. It's producing more. It's getting taller. It's spreading out. That's a plant that's really happy and in the right condition. If it just sits there for 3 years, that's not the right spot. And I would say in that case, it's simple. Don't say, no, dig it up. It's not in a good spot. Just take it and put it in a opposite spot. So if it was in the shade, put it in the sun. If it was on the east side of the house, put it on the west side of the house. There's really 4 habitats around your house as far as plants go. And the same for birds. You want to attract more birds. There's 4 areas around your house, because if it's cold, it's winter, it's cold, where are the birds? They're not sitting in the shade. They're going to sit on some plants in the sun, out of the wind. So there's 2 very specific things that will cause that your yard will get more birds. So I'd have clients where first thing I realized, wow, it must be brutal here in the winter. So one of the things I put in would be a hedge that would cut the wind down. And ideally, if the hedge had a side that faced the sun, I knew that when that hedge grew up, all the birds would go there. Think, it's obvious if you've seen examples of it, and it's like, yeah, that would work here, because that works, period. So cover is usually lacking, and especially nest cover. So, I mean, a plant that's under a meter high or 3 feet high, it's kind of useless for most species.
Because they won't nest in that?
They won't nest. It's within reach of a raccoon or a cat, and it's like, no, it's not that good. If you get to 2 meters, it's the start of it being useful. So I always say some of the best is examples where people are pruning their hedge down, and it's species that would grow much taller, but they're being kept artificially low. So you don't have to plant them because you've got them, but you do have to let them express themselves a bit more, climb up, grow taller. And once you reach above 2, once you get into the 3 meters or 9 feet high, now
they'll start using
absolutely. Now they're going to be the place where birds might absolutely use to nest in, because it's a hedge, so it's thick, but it's tall. So it's details like that. Cover is very important. Let's hit the third one. So we did some food, some cover. And what was the third one?
Water.
Water. I mean, water is one of the instant. Just go put up a bird bath.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be fancy. We got at the farm these little dishes that are actually,
True.
they're made for potted plants. They're the underneath that you put like a dish underneath the potted plant so that when you have too much water, it fills up. But they work really well, and they're tough. They can last. So if I forget to put them away in the winter, they'll spend the winter in the orchard, and it's fine. So we've had some for years out there. And
Inexpensive.
really, I think they're like $2. But all I do is I put a drip line right over it so that automatically it will fill up, and actually a minor flush, but it will kind of flush, which is important because if birds are using it a lot, the water can get a little cloudy.
Sure.
So having some rinsing of water is useful. But something so simple, just say, well, I don't really have, or I don't have a hose, or I don't have irrigation, then just make it a point that, you know what, you're going
As
in
you're
the
doing your
yard,
rounds,
you're
yeah.
doing something once a day or once every 2-3 days. Just bring a container that has the same amount, tip it over, empty your bird bath, and refill, and there you go. I mean, water.
So you really are gardening for birds.
You're gardening, absolutely. And boy, you'll know very quickly if water was the element that will give you the biggest bang for the buck. I remember an example. I was in somebody's yard and we're walking around, and I happened to look, and there's a squirrel right on the edge of the roof, but it looked like he was ducking into the gutter. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at him, and I see, oh yeah, okay. I realized, and often what happens with a gutter is you will have leaves accumulate or material accumulate in the gutter, so that when you had a rain, and I think it rained like a day and a half before, and
Clogged it.
it was not necessarily clogged, but it was dammed up so the gutter would hold some water, which is also the best breeding ground for mosquitoes. If you find you have a lot of mosquitoes, clean your gutters, because 9 out of 10, a gutter that has a ½ inch of water is going to have mosquito larvae, and it can have hundreds. I've seen, boy, it crawling with mosquito larvae, because there's lots of nutrients flowing off the roof, so the mosquito larvae can feed and grow. And it's like, man, we got all these mosquitoes. Like, there's no water around. Sure, there's water around. Check your gutters.
Also, that's important to, like, the little things the Pansy was saying. It's important to dump those out, because otherwise, I'm sure that too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you can have it, like we have some of them set up where when the irrigation goes on every day, there's a bigger hose that kind of jets into it, so that for 15 or half.
But I mean, most
minutes,
people don't have that pop.
No,
so,
but
yeah,
you can even do, if you have a sprinkler, then automating your irrigation in the yard is really, really handy. And the more you can have things happen without you, oh, I don't know, did I empty the bird bath? Look, did the irrigation go on today? Yeah, your bird bath is fine. So that's just one less thing that you have to concern yourself about. But yeah, so that squirrel, to me, and again, that's why, we have the indicator series, because there's so many things. That's not the problem. They're indicating. So that squirrel, to me, was indicating, wow, there's a desperate need here for water. And so we added a bird bath. It was like, I think I told them, just go put in a bird. Here's a good spot. Put it in here. And I was working on the plan, whatever. And they called back, so excited. We had a whole bunch of birds coming to the bird bath. Yeah, because that was in wildlife management, we call it, or in biology, we call it limiting factor. There's something that is limiting either the amount of animals you have or the diversity of animals you have. So in that case, to me, the limiting factor here in this yard was water. There was shrubs, there was other things.
But that
But
was the
water
big
was the big one.
bang for the buck.
So you put that, and all of a sudden, boom, you could double the amount of birds you have using your yard in one afternoon. It's like, come on, that's not, absolutely. Like you could go to 10 times the amount of birds you have. You think, oh, 10, that's not possible. There's all things you can tweak that will give either, like I said, a window, a plant at a certain time. Wow, it's going to attract a whole lot of birds. You have butterflies coming for a certain plant that's in bloom. Man, the butterflies are crazy in there. It's getting all these little tweaks together that can absolutely make. I was looking at examples in the ocean, and they were finding areas that had been fished where they dragged the bottom with a net.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically, it scrapes the bottom and it eliminates habitat. Anything. It could be, something growing, a piece of coral or a plant growing at the bottom. It just takes it out. So they found that in some areas compared to, so an area that had been dragged and the bottom is clean, compared to an area that had never been dragged, that has all the plants there, maybe has some coral, and they can have 100 times more fish or diversity of fish in the ocean. It's like 100 times.
Sure, I see that.
So in your yard, even just aiming for 10 times more, you think, gosh, I don't know. How many birds did you count? I counted 2 birds in the yard. Okay. 20 birds, absolutely possible. So it's those kind of things with knowing. So the quick ones, so the water, I mean, if you put in a bird bath, so I'd say, you got a bird bath? Yes. Okay, great. How about a pond now? Oh, we already have the bird bath. Yes, and that's good for some species. But now you've eliminated water as a limiting factor, but now you're going broader. You're adding that element like water, but for more species, because some don't want to go to a bird bath. I don't go up in the air to get water. And so you put a bird bath. We've done that with, even things like feeders. You have a feeder up in the air, that's one thing. But if you have it down on the ground, there's species that always prefer to feed on the ground. So it's just having that diversity. So first, make sure you have the elements and then diversify the elements. And water is a good example. There's, could go from a little dish to where you put the bird bath is also an element. Like somebody will say, I'll put a bird and I never get any. Okay, then move it. It's not in the right spot. And think of it. I put it in the middle of my yard. Yeah, you won't get a lot in the middle of your yard because you have to be
reverse engineer
a little bit bird-brained. And think of it. A bird that's gone to the bird bath to take a bath will never be heavier than when it's just had a bath. Its feathers are all wet. Like, how heavy is a bird? Not very heavy, but add 5 or 10% of its weight in water in its feathers. All of a sudden, it's not going to fly.
It's like you running with a weighted vest, pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's got a limit to what it can do. And so it will not like to use a bird bath where it's going to be far to go to cover. So you want your bird baths to be fairly close, not too close, because then you get the whole element of, well, if it's really right up, maybe there's a hedge right underneath it, then in that hedge, there could be a cat, predator, and there could be a predator. So you got to try it, just tweak it around, move it. Sometimes just 3 feet will make all the difference. It's like too close. They really find that a little too close.
Okay, well, limiting factors. I'm going to be the limiting factor on this because I'm not lying. He could go on for 4 hours. I think this might be the longest podcast we've done, and I have to edit it. So on that note, good job, Pops.